After looking at skateboarding games in the Tony Hawk's and Skate series, I've received a ton of comments asking about the more experimental and less talked about Tony Hawk titles. And I get it, some of these games flew under the radar, and today we're diving into one of the most unique entries in the entire series, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. The game trades the open-ended exploration for high-speed, arcade-style racing, and it's unlike anything else in the Tony Hawk's franchise. My name is OneHip, and thanks for clicking on this video. And as always, thank you if you've watched any of my previous retrospectives, and if you're new here, welcome. Anyway, let's go. Released in 2006, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam came out during a strange split in the series. While its accompanying release on other consoles, Project 8, was aiming for realism, open worlds, and ragdoll physics, Downhill Jam went completely the other direction. Pure arcade action, exaggerated physics, and a focus on speed. The game was developed by Toys for Bob for the Wii and PS2, Vicarious Visions for the DS, and Visual Impact for the Game Boy Advance, and all ports were published by Activision. The Wii version launched alongside the console in November 2006, while the PS2 port came out later in 2007 with a few tweaks, but mostly the same core gameplay. This is also one of the only Tony Hawk titles to be Wii exclusive at first, highlighting Activision's attempt to capture the new motion control market with a familiar name. For this retrospective, I'm emulating the PS2 version via PCSX2. It runs great overall, and it avoids the motion control quirks of the Wii version, making it a smoother, more comfortable way to experience the game today. Downhill Jam is not a traditional Tony Hawk game. You're not free skating, exploring a city, or building massive combo lines. Instead, every level is a downhill race. The goal is to get to the bottom fast, while doing tricks, knocking down rivals, and pulling off style points. Think SSX, but with skateboards. The game is structured around events, races, trick attack runs, slalom, elimination modes, and combo challenges. It's all tightly designed for short bursts of fun. You choose from several skaters, including the Birdman himself, and progress through ranked events to unlock new stages, boards, characters, and outfits. The PS2 and Wii versions also feature custom skaters with a create a character option, although it's nowhere near as deep as in Underground or Proving Ground. If you've enjoyed these deep dives into the Tony Hawk and EA Skate series, feel free to drop a like to help more people find these retrospectives. And if you want to see more of the underrated or forgotten skateboarding titles, as well as any non-skateboarding games, subscribing will make sure that you don't miss the next one. I really appreciate the support. It really helps keep these retrospectives going. The biggest departure here is how the game feels. Speed is the name of the game. So much so that there's a dedicated boost meter you build by doing tricks and knocking down other racers. You can knock them off their boards with shoulder checks, like Mario Kart meets Tony Hawk. On the Wii, the motion controls were a selling point. You tilt the controller to steer, and while it was novel at the time, it hasn't aged too well. The PS2 version plays with a regular controller and is far more responsive as a result. Trick inputs are simplified, but chaining combos are still possible. You won't be pulling off 50 trick lines, but the game does reward mixing grinds and airs with smart timing and quick reflexes. There's no bail system here like in Project 8. Wipeouts are fast, and you respawn quickly by rapidly tapping a button to keep the action flowing. In that way, it feels like a proper arcade game. Each track is a downhill course set in a stylized real-world location. There's San Francisco, Edinburgh, Rio, Hong Kong, and the Swiss Alps, and a cool throwback to Mall from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater called Chicago, among others. Every stage features alternate paths, shortcuts, environmental hazards, and massive air spots. What's fun here is learning the optimal route. Much like racing games, memorization and skill really start to pay off. You'll find grinding rails that skip chunks of the track, or jumps that launch you past slower sections. Some later levels get surprisingly complex, with hazards like collapsing bridges or narrow wall ride sections that punish poor timing. The game wants you to go fast, but you need to stay sharp. There's an old school arcade tension to this one. Downhill Jam adopts a cel-shaded, cartoonish style, especially noticeable in the Wii version. Characters are exaggerated with big heads, wild animations, and colourful outfits. This was a far cry from the gritty realism Project 8 aimed for, and honestly, it fits the vibe quite well. Animations are snappy, and each skater has their own personality, even if they're mostly one-liner machines. There's a lot of charm here, even if the budget was clearly smaller. Performance-wise, the Wii version runs well enough, but the PS2 version that I played on is smoother overall. The DS version, which I've never played before, and it's a completely different style with isometric gameplay, from my understanding was surprisingly solid for handheld standards. There's technically a story in Downhill Jam, but it's very light. You're competing in Tony's downhill competition, trying to climb the ranks and unlock new gear. You travel around the world to different events and you beat rivals rivals along the way. That's pretty much it. Cutscenes are minimal and they're often skippable, but there's a quirky, light-hearted tone throughout. Rival characters include goofball stereotypes and exaggerated personalities. In my opinion, it's a bit dated now, but it doesn't take itself seriously, and this works in the game's favor.
Parents think about all of these skating-related accidents.
My mom's okay with it, so long as I don't ever tell her about my accidents or let her see my injuries. As for my dad, I never really met him. He took off when I was really young. Supposedly, he disappeared and became a secret character in some video game somewhere.
Your main aim is progression, unlocking new boards, costumes, and characters. It's simple, but effective. While I didn't have the opportunity to do this mode, multiplayer is where Downhill Jam quietly shines. The game supports split-screen multiplayer on consoles, and the racing-based structure makes it a blast with friends. From what I've seen on videos of people playing multiplayer, boosting past someone at the last second or slamming them off a rail can be genuinely hilarious. There's no online support for the game anymore, and there's no creator park, but what's here is tight and focused. You unlock secret characters by completing various event challenges, and the costume options, while pretty much goofy, add a bit of fun flair. The soundtrack is a mix of punk rock, alternative, and hip-hop, though it leans more into high-energy, fast-paced tracks to match the racing focus of the game. It's not the most iconic Tony Hawk playlist, but it gets the job done. There's tracks from artists like The Bronx, Lupe Fiasco, Damone, and even some instrumental funk breaks in certain spots. Besides Kick Push by Lupe Fiasco, nothing else really stood out as a classic, but it's serviceable and it fits the game's tone. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam is definitely an oddity in the franchise, but it's also one of the more fun spin-offs, and it was much better than when I remembered playing it many years ago. If you go in expecting something like Pro Skater 3 or Underground 2, you'll be disappointed, but if you treat it like what it is, an arcade racer with Tony Hawk tricks laid on top, it's surprisingly enjoyable. It's not deep, and on the Wii the motion controls might be off-putting today, but the PS2 version that I played holds up as a tight, silly, fast-paced ride. For fans who've played all the main games and want something different, Downhill Jam is worth checking out. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. Downhill Jam is a weird little game, but maybe one that deserves more attention in my opinion. Let me know in the comments, have you played this one? Do you remember the Wii launch version, or did you check out the PS2 or DS versions? I'll be back next week to do a retrospective on Tony Hawk's Proving Ground, the last Tony Hawk's game developed by Neversoft. If you made it to the end of this one, thank you so much for watching. Drop a like if you've enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing to the channel for more gaming retrospectives like this one. Memberships are also available on this channel if you want to support it further, and you unlock a few perks as well. My name is OneHip, and I'll catch you for the next one. Take care, have a good one. Bye!